Have you ever noticed that the things that help us grow the most are often the ones that are the most uncomfortable too? One of the big benefits of ice baths is that they increase stress resilience. When you go into ice, you go into a stressful situation, an ice bath or a cold shower, whatever cold exposure you want. And one of the goals of that should be to become comfortable in the uncomfortable, become more comfortable in a stressful situation. And the very cool thing is that when you become more comfortable in ice, it's almost like training a muscle that you can become more comfortable in all kinds of stressful situations. So if you have a stressful situation at work or in your family life or on the street in public, whatever, you will be more able to deal with that simply because you're more used to it. You are improving your cellular response to all kinds of different stressors. You also become more heat resistant, right? It makes sense that you would become more resistant toward cold, but there's this kind of cross adaptation that happens that makes you more resistant to all kinds of different stressors. Another big benefit of cold exposure and ice baths is that it can reduce inflammation and improve your immune system. So basically you get sick less often. What happens when you go into an ice bath is that, of course, it's a big stressor, so your immune system activates and it fights off this perceived attack, and you actually increase the amount of white blood cells that you have in your body, which increases your immune response to all kinds of different diseases and whatever might be happening in your body. Your body is actually constantly fighting different viruses and bacteria. So you simply boost your immune system and you will be sick less often. Now, a side note is that if you're already sick, if your body is already fighting something more seriously, then you shouldn't go into ice. And the reduction in inflammation is also very beneficial for most of us Westerners because we have so many lifestyle diseases that are actually caused by inflammation. We have so many toxins in the air, in our food, in our water, in the products that we buy at the supermarket, that our bodies are actually constantly fighting this off, and we're experiencing low levels of inflammation all the time. And ice baths can help with that because we simply reduce the inflammation so much. And inflammation is not necessarily bad. In the short term, it's a good thing, right? But when it becomes chronic, it can be a big issue. And ice baths help both with the short term and with the chronic inflammation. Ice baths help you improve your blood flow. When we go into ice, something in the body happens that's called vasoconstriction. Essentially, your blood vessels, they tighten. They become more tight like this, and it's more difficult for blood to go into your extremities. So what happens is that the body tries to protect all of the vital organs, all of the core body, because those are the vital organs, right? You can't live without your heart, your lungs, your kidneys, but you can live without a hand, even though it wouldn't be so nice, obviously, then that is possible. But basically, all the blood rushes in, right? And the blood vessels tighten. And then when you get out, then you experience vasodilation, right? So they untighten. And going through this, you're essentially training your cardiovascular system to respond, and it becomes better at tightening and untightening. So that can improve your overall blood flow and circulation, which helps with a bunch of different things. Basically, most injuries that you have, they will be healed through blood flow. That's why when you go to the physio and maybe you have a shoulder injury, she gives you a massage, or you want to do exercises so that blood flows into that shoulder. Basically, ice baths can help you have constantly better blood flow, and that also helps you with the recovery of sore muscles. That's also because you reduce the inflammation, obviously, and that's another great benefit. Improved mood. Ice baths can act as a natural antidepressant. One of the core ingredients in many different antidepressants is norepinephrine. And when you go into an ice bath, it's been shown in several studies that you drastically increase your norepinephrine. One study found that after an hour in 14 degrees Celsius water, participants increased their norepinephrine by 530%. So a huge increase. And that's also one of the reasons why you might feel so good after you get out of an ice bath, or sometimes even during. It's almost like a euphoric feeling, right? And the cool thing is that this increase, it lasts for several hours, and you're not gonna have any of the side effects that you have from taking antidepressants. Related to that point, you're also going to increase your alertness, your energy, your motivation, and your focus, right? So when the body gets into a dangerous situation, it's like, okay, shit, I need to be alert. I need to know what's going on. You might go into a deep state of focus, right? And another thing that happens is that your dopamine levels actually increase. In that same study I mentioned before, they showed that participants increased their dopamine levels by 250%, the same ones who increased the norepinephrine after 1 hour in 14-degree water. And it's quite safe to say, or it's at least an assumption, that if you lower the temperature, then you need less exposure, right? So you don't need to sit in 14 degrees for an hour. That's a lot of time. But basically, dopamine is almost a hormone of motivation. So the higher your dopamine levels are at the baseline, then you will be more able to do difficult things, or be more motivated to do those things you haven't been motivated towards doing. Ice baths improve your sleep. Another study looked at runners who exposed themselves to the cold versus a control group that didn't, and it showed that the runners who did do cold exposure, they slept better in the early part of the night. They slept more deeply in the early part of the night, they moved around less, they woke up less. So that suggests that cold exposure can help your recovery and also your sleep. So those two are probably quite interlinked. Now I do want to note that it's not a good idea to do cold exposure or an ice bath very close to your bedtime, because it does give you that increase in alertness. So in that time, close to your bedtime, it's actually better to do heat exposure, because what happens then is that your body thinks, okay, it's warm, I need to cool myself down. And your body temperature actually needs to drop a whole degree Celsius in order to fall asleep. Now to one of the more obvious benefits is that your ability to deal with the cold becomes much better. You're not going to feel as cold, right? So the reason for that is that your defense mechanisms, when you go into ice, they're going to strengthen over time. Just like if you went to the gym and in the beginning you can't lift a lot, but then you train and your muscle becomes stronger. It works the same with your ability to deal with the cold. So your different defense mechanisms, such as shivering, your brown fat activation, your vasoconstriction, the ability of those defense mechanisms improve, right? You will have better blood flow, so maybe your hands and feet are not so cold anymore, right? And that's one of the nice benefits. But I do have to say, you do have to be a little bit mindful. Sometimes you need to, when you sit in the ice, you do need to concentrate and think like, okay, and feel the blood flow going into the extremities if you want to heat them up. So it does require some focus. That's actually an important part of sitting in an ice bath. You can't just sit there and like, no, you have to calm down and try to calm yourself, focus, become comfortable in the uncomfortable, right? Now, lastly, ice bath and cold exposure can also be used for fat loss. So when you're in the ice, you boost your metabolic rate by 3 to 4 times. So, and also in the period after the ice. So of course you're going to burn a lot of energy because your body needs to heat itself up and stay warm. So that requires more energy, of course. So in that time, you are going to increase your metabolic rate. Now, it's not nearly as effective as, let's say, going for a run or something like that, but it does something. So I wanted to mention it, but it's not, if your goal is weight loss, this is not going to like transform that basically. Those were the ice bath benefits. I hope you enjoyed this. If you did, stick around.